The 7th chapter we pick up, and I don't know what page number it is, but you may not need it. The Holy Gospel according to St. Luke, the 7th chapter. After Jesus had finished all his sayings in the hearings of the people, he entered Capernaum. A centurion there had a slave he valued highly, who was also ill and close to death. When he heard about Jesus, he sent some Jewish elders to say to him, "Come and heal my slave." When the elders came to Jesus, they said to him, and they appealed to him earnestly, saying, "This man is worthy of you having to do this for him, for he loves us, our people. And it's he who built our synagogue for us." Jesus went with them. But as they got near the house, the centurion sent out some friends to say to him, "Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy to have you come under the roof of my house. That's why I did not presume to come to you. But only speak the word, and let my servant be healed. For I too am a man set under authority with soldiers under me, and I say to one, 'Go,' and he goes, and I say to another, 'Come,' and he comes. And I say to a slave, 'Do this,' and the slave does it." When Jesus heard this about him, he was amazed. And turning to the crowds that had followed him, he said, "I tell you, not in all of Israel have I found such faith." And when those who had been sent returned to the house, they found the slave in good health. The gospel of the Lord. Praise to you. Please be seated. As some of you know, I when I was in the Navy, I served 2.5 years in Italy, in Naples. It was a hardship tour. But one of the things you worry about with young bachelors or young men who have some money, disposable income, is that they enjoy the lifestyle a little too much. And those of you that work in the Foreign Service are familiar with the terminology being co-opted by the culture. There was a big concern that some of us young naval officers might fall too much in love with the Italian way of things, or with affiliate or associate too closely with our allies in the NATO navies. Now, there was a guy who was there at the same time as I was, a classmate of mine from the academy, Brad. Brad was a young single guy. Brad was not a lifer, but he knew that his swan song after his first sub tour was going to be 2 years in Italy, and then he was going to get out and go off as an entrepreneur, which is what he did. Did great things in the world. Brad was not a shy guy, but Brad fell in love with Italian culture. Brad lived in a part of town that nobody else dared to go to. He became fluent, not just in Italian, but in Neapolitan, the local dialect. Brad loved speaking, dressing, and shopping, and consorting with his neighbors. Brad just became Italian. In fact, the senior officers began calling him Guido. And he dressed the part. He smelled the part. I mean, he wore the cologne, tons of it. He came in the flashy outfits, very chic, I guess it was. Brad also thought that he was taking an opportunity, and he trained for a marathon because he wanted to run the original marathon in Athens out to the plains of the marathon. And Brad did do that. He completed the marathon. He didn't leave Athens for 4 days after that because he couldn't get out of his hotel room bed, but Brad went wholeheartedly into that culture. He would spend his lunch hours talking with the Italian and Greek and French submariners instead of going to the cafeteria or sharing lunch at his desk with the rest of us. People started to suspect that somehow Brad was a little too close to the locals. Some started to doubt some of his decision making, that somehow he may have become too unduly influenced. And he suffered a little bit because of it. He was given the late shift on the watch. He was given some of the dirty little jobs to do around the command. People stopped inviting him to parties. And everybody else saw that and took note. Don't get too close to the locals. Don't become Guido. When I read this text, that we have this story this morning. In fact, some of you say, gee, I haven't heard that one before. I talked to a pastor colleague. He said this is the first time Sunday he's ever in 40 years preached on this text because it's the only time it came up. Easter was early enough this year that we got far enough into this lectionary that we actually had this lesson. And it's too bad. But when I hear about this centurion, my first thought was, man, here's this guy in the hinterlands of Galilee, standing post with a contingent of soldiers, trying to keep the peace, trying to rule this area for the Roman Empire. And the elders on a friendly basis with him. He's arranged to have a synagogue built for them. He has a slave whom he values highly for whatever reason. And he's actually sending entreaties to a local rabbi, a teacher with a reputation for healing. Maybe that's why he himself didn't go to see Jesus. He didn't want to get too close. Because worried about his superiors thinking that he might be co-opted by the locals. He might be too close to these rowdy Judeans. Suspicions, worries, concerns, they always kind of infiltrate our brain somehow, causing us to doubt, to be suspicious, to ascribe motives for whatever reasons to people's thoughts and words and actions. On Facebook this week, don't worry, I'm not preaching from this. But I didn't want to remember this, so I want to make sure I got this right. But this is from a colleague of mine who was on vacation in Florida and found this outside a large church they went to visit there. And it's a big sign printed on the front, right outside the front door. Big capital letters. Proper attire required in the sanctuary. In italics it says, including but not limited to, no sandals. This is Florida. No short pants. No athletic wear. No casual attire. No women in pants. No men with braids, locks, or earrings. No visible tattoos. And then underlined it says, please see usher on duty for any questions you may have before entering the sanctuary. Thank you for your cooperation. I'm supposing the evangelism committee did not put that up. But there's something about this idea that the way we dress, the way we appear physically, casts some kind of doubts on our motivations, on who we are. I got to tell you, Brad, my friend, had a higher than top secret clearance, and he still has it today. It's 25, 30 years later. Never once has he wavered in his integrity. This centurion, the Jewish elders felt that he loved their people. It was an expedience just to make things calm, to keep the peace politically, to allow himself to advance. They felt that he loved them. And he was humble enough that when Jesus responded to his entreaty through them to come and heal his slave, he sent his friends to Jesus to say, you know what, Lord, don't besmirch yourself. Don't soil your reputation by coming into my house, because I am not worthy for you to even come into my presence. But just speak the word and heal my servant. Actually, the Greek word used there is different than the ones for slave. The Greek word used there means my little one. Just speak the word and heal my little one. Not a piece of property, not someone I own, not an employee. Somebody I care about. I know that somehow you have the authority to speak and have things happen. Does he ascribe this to Yahweh, to the God of the Jews, or to other gods? We don't know. But it's interesting, isn't it, that Jesus says, not in all of Israel have I found such faith. Not proper faith, not the correct doctrinal understanding of the Trinity, not one who probably understands the proper form and format of worship, not one who has jumped through all the hoops, but one who trusts that Jesus has the power to do what he says he can do. One who knows that Jesus can heal and make whole. Because some of us here, maybe not on the outside, but in the inside, are wearing shorts or flip-flops or tattoos or braids or pants. Or we're broken. Or we're close to dying. Or we are despairing. Or we are lost, or conflicted, or angry, or confused. And yet Jesus can heal us. A word spoken, we can be made whole. No matter what it looks like on the outside, no matter how many Sundays you've been in church in a row, no matter how many Bible study groups you're in, no matter how many food pantries you serve in. Jesus promises his love for us. And Jesus promises to make us whole. Do we trust him? Are we too preoccupied with the things that we have assumed mean that we are faithful Christians, that we all look alike and speak alike, and we know when to stand up and to sit down, or we know when it takes time to go through confirmation? Do we know the right words, the right prayers, right thoughts? There's a lot of fear in our country today. Not that there's never been a time when there hasn't been fear, but there's many who want to stir up fear by using things to associate others and divide us, to make us fearful of people of other religions or other colors, or their ethnic backgrounds, solely because it's expedient for their purposes. Whether it's because we should be afraid of them because they might want to hurt us, or because they live in countries where there are diseases we can't control. Whether we close down all access to people who are coming from West Africa or from the Caribbean or whatever else because of viruses and other diseases, or whether we want to build a wall along the southern border to keep people out. Jesus promises to make us whole. Do we trust him? Do we believe that God somehow can use people, even a Roman conqueror? He cannot work inside these situations to make healing, compassion, to bring about the kingdom of God with these unlikeliest of characters. You see, the gospel, the good news, I hate to tell you, isn't just for us. For those who meet the dress code, or who are doctrinally pure. The gospel, the good news, is for everyone. Black or white, brown or yellow, pagan or believer, young or old, hipster or square. God's good news that in Jesus Christ he loves us deeply and cares about you. That's for everyone. Live like that. Speak like that. Live your life so that you are a reflection of God's good news for the world. Some may doubt. Some may question your motives. But have faith. Have faith that is so rare that Jesus found it nowhere in Israel. Trust in the good news of God.